and letting us know that they're dialing in or coming on. Well, happy Thursday. It's Connected Conversations time, one of my favorite days of the week. And I get to see and share and gather with all of you, even if it's virtually. So to those that are new and joining Connected Conversations, it is a weekly forum where we gather online and virtually at 1 o'clock, where job seekers, our community, our talent agents, our network and friends come together. Oftentimes we have guest speakers that come and join. Anything centered around the job market, helping each other out, resources, and even some things for our own wellness, right? So we invite everyone. I will be messaging in the chat box to share how to follow more Connected Conversations and to be subscribed, as well as how to reach our talent agents and myself, as well as our sales team. Okay, so again, good afternoon to everyone. So before we introduce Kai, I wanted to share a few updates on the employment market and what's going on and what we're seeing and hearing out there. So as some of you may know, we still have 20.9 million people unemployed, but we are starting to see some businesses open back up. A lot more are coming back to work, even if they're on abbreviated schedules or part-time. We're also starting to see a bit more movement on hiring managers, interviews, and those types of next steps. So, and also another thing we've been seeing a lot more of, and we've been talking about these on different panels and guestings and whatnot, is that there are a lot more people that are using staffing agencies. So at this time, as you know, people come around and out of a recession, a pandemic, any of those types of things, we do see an incline and peak in staffing services, contingent services. Some call it temp work, but nowadays really anything and everything we do is all based on performance and timing, right? So staffing agencies are definitely a place to connect.
Okay.
We would appreciate you giving Slingshot a shot if you are looking for a job at the time. Feel free to connect with us, okay? So I will actually share our guest speaker. So I know a lot of you guys read her bio and what we shared, but I must say I have personal experience with Kai on several different levels. I ran into her at chamber events. I've actually had her as a client. She hired some interns one summer to assist in her business. And I have to tell you, she's a great professional that networks and helps others, a lot of women in business, but a lot of people in general in business. So you'll see her in a very competitive market, but she's always so helpful, always inclusive. And I've had a wonderful experience with her. And I'll already speak to the, you know, elephant in the room that might say she's a Mariah Carey lookalike. She gets asked that all the time, so I'll go ahead and say that now, I know. But she's our own Mariah Carey. So Kai Deering, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the screens over to you, and I know that those of you can see this already. As Kai's presenting, feel free to send message or questions in the chat box. I'll go ahead and manage that for her, and then as soon as she's done, I'll make sure we open it up for other additional questions that you all have.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're a funny woman. I love that. And I'm going to tell you I know Teresa since 2012. Tiffany, she actually worked for a client of mine in corporate as well, and we've known each other for a long time. So I think combined, I've probably known these ladies for over a decade, and just super professional, love their company, and you couldn't be in better hands as far as staffing is concerned. And I was just mentioning how honored I am that you bring such value to people, whether it's staffing related or kind of peripherally. It's just a really beautiful thing that you guys are doing. So major kudos to all of you as well. Just a great firm. And I know because I used to do staffing back in the day. So this is a good one. But everyone, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about identity theft. I'm kind of a nerd on identity theft and an expert. So
Yes.
I'm going to do an abridged version because we can do this for 30 minutes, 2 hours. It's a really fun concept. But we're going to talk about how it relates to the COVID-19 situation that we're in now, the recent frauds and things like that. So I'm a nerd. I love this stuff. It's very interesting to me. And I've done these presentations all over North America. So I'm just going to share with you some things. Warning, some of this content may seem alarming. So it's better to be over-informed than under-informed. So I just don't want everyone to panic and leave here freaking out. because sometimes that happens. So I want to make sure that everyone here just knows that this is just, the best information is most important. We're going to talk a little bit about what identity theft is, some of the facts. I don't need to go through a ton of this because it's pretty obvious. It's been an issue for a long time. What is the industry response been, so you understand what the different options are out there for you and some of the best practices? Now, we can't prevent identity theft for obvious reasons. Our information's out there. It's sort of like the genie's out of the bottle, if you will. But, we know that people can use our information in a multitude of ways. And so, our most valuable assets aren't our homes, even though we probably think it is here in Northern California because they're pricey, and our boats and all these other things, but it's how we acquired those. And that's our most valuable possessions as our information. And our information is sometimes like not just your social, would you guys agree? It's your, date of birth and your passport and all of these things out there that we call PII, personal identifying information, that people can wreak havoc with. So let's just kind of dive into what are the 5 areas of identity theft, and then we're going to kind of go into how they're doing it and what the prevention tips are. So how many people here, of course, I would never have had a fake ID, just so you know, never ever as a kid, but how many people agree that if a kid can get a fake ID, so can the criminals? And I actually, I think when I met you, Teresa, I was on the board of directors for Crime Stoppers. And every single person that we paid tips for, there was some sort of driver's license or credit card fraud that they had. Because if I'm a criminal, I'm not going to commit crimes in my name. I'm going to use your driver's license if I get pulled over. And the challenge with driver's license identity theft is, let's just say, you've been a victim of this and somebody pulls you over because your driver's license, maybe they got a DUI and never went to court. And if you get pulled over and the guns are drawn and you say, but officer, it wasn't me. How many times do you think they might have heard that in a day? Quite a few. So unfortunately, these are one of the few crimes that, if you become a victim, you've got to actually prove yourself innocent. It should be the other way around, right? You're innocent until proven guilty. Here, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So it can be a real kind of play there on that. So driver's license identity theft is a big challenge out there. We're all pretty familiar, I think, with Social Security identity theft, especially during COVID. People could go online on a website, enter in their social to get their stimulus checks. So if you've not received your stimulus check, you definitely want to check into that. But we've seen, this is, old news. They do unemployment claims, right, on your name. We've even had all kinds of folks work in other people's name. Let's say that I'm a criminal and I can't get a job because of the background check. I'll just work in somebody else's social because I can get a better job that way. So there's a lot of ways that people are using their social security number. And San Jose Mercury News was one of the very first to come out with really an expose about 7 years ago on medical identity theft. And this is interesting because I don't know what I would do in a tenuous time frame if I didn't have access to medical, and I needed treatment. I probably, would do what I needed to do to help my children or help myself. So a lot of times it's, somebody who maybe is out of the system, not working, that needs access. And so I had a member of mine got a letter in the mail for a bill for the amputation of her left foot. She has 2 feet. So, the challenge is, what do you do? Go to the accounts receivable office, put your feet on the desk and say, look, it's not me. It's a real challenge. And San Jose Mercury said medical identity theft is the one identity theft that could kill you. So what if you've got your records mixed up and different blood types and things like that? And then, Teresa, they actually busted a ring in Milpitas a few years ago. They were inviting seniors to come in because seniors, children, active, military are real problems right now. They're having a lot of issues. But they invited seniors to come in and get a free case of Insure and some free checkups. And what they did was they racked up about $3 million in about 4 days worth of erroneous medical procedures they did not do to receive them from the insurance company. So it's the onesie twosies where they can't get access to medical, but then it's a big fraud issue. And California actually on identity theft ranks number 3. Florida is number 4, and number 1, ironically, is Nevada. I guess, everyone's willing to gamble on doing bad things in what stays in Vegas stays in. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Darn, I want the millions paid to me to my name, though.
Right? So it's interesting. And then, has anybody ever seen the movie Identity Thief with Melissa McCarthy in it? she was pretty much a victim of every area of this, and she perpetrated character and criminal identity theft. She got arrested and used the other guy's information to be able to commit a crime. And then if you remember, he tried to go get a job, and it was on his background check, and he was in finance, so he couldn't do that. So, you know, really we got to be careful of that. And what's great in California is you can request a copy of your background check. So, you know, if somebody's doing a background check, you know, check it, just see what's on there. It's not a bad idea. Just see what's going on in there. And then financial identity theft, and that's only about a quarter of the issue. Everyone thinks of identity theft and they think of it as financial, right? Like credit card fraud. But think about it, that's pretty easy to fix yourself. You can call up, get it, you know, handled. And most of the time, so here's the biggest challenge with this though, is I was a victim. They bought Emirates airline tickets, right? Embassy suite hotels in the Middle East. And it was to the tune of like a lot of thousands of dollars. But here's what was interesting was they got a hold of my ATM, and I'm really careful with my ATM. And because it was attached to what? My savings account as well. They went through my whole checking account and went to my savings account and kind of leached some things out of there too. Now the bank has 90 days to do an investigation. But if you don't have money for 90 days, how do you pay your rent and things like that? Well, you know, luckily I'm married, so I was able to say, hey, you know, we got to use your money right now until we get my money back. So I'm very, we'll talk about this under prevention tips. I'm very careful on my ATM. So my recommendation is use Visas, because your Visa, right, has different protections for you personally. You can dispute the charges because it's not really your money yet. So just be mindful of that. So that was interesting that I had to wait 90 days. Now the financial institutions have lost $4 billion, trillion, $1 million, $4 trillion. That's what it is, $4 trillion in 2019. And so what happens is they just don't really want to have to pay it back. So what they're doing is trying to stick it to the person who has lost the money. Now here's an example. Bank of America had an article. There's an article about them when they had somebody who's said, hey, I was a victim of identity theft. I've been a victim of fraud. Please replace my money. Well, it was like $14,000. And what they said to her was, no, we're not replacing the money because you did not have a robust enough, you know, spyware, firewall on your home computer. So when we're working from home now, and many of us are, I've been working from home, I was telling Trees for, 15 years now. And so what happens is we just really need to make sure that our home security is really, really good, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information. So that was a big wake-up call, you know, for me. And I had a little friend of mine who does IT stuff, go online, my computer remote, make sure all my stuff was up to date, because, you know, we want to be really careful with our information on there. And again, financial institutions get tired of losing money, so they're trying to not pay those fraudulent charges back whenever possible. So let's just talk about the sixth area. This is a trickier area because it's not easy, but it's easier to put people back together when they've been the victim of identity theft. But what's a real challenge is, let's say I take Teresa's social, I use Tiffany's address, I use my name, and I make a whole mosaic of one person that's kind of a new person, but it's a mosaic of everybody out there. And how are they doing that? Well, they can get little bits and pieces of information. Let's say from those, I hate those genealogy websites are the pits, because they have your mother's maiden name on there. So if I can, you know, scam you out of, let's say, the last 4 of your social, I can get the other ones. I might be able to get your, you know, somebody else's mother's maiden name and just kind of create a new person out there. So there's our information, like I said, is kind of already out there, which leads me to some of the stats. And I could be here all day with stats, and I don't think you signed up to see a bunch of stats. So I'm just going to tell you, it takes an average thief about an hour and a half to gain information. And it takes the average victim, you know, it can take them several years. And they don't know how to fix it. Like, where would you even begin? And this is why they catch less than 1 out of 700. I mean, we've all been to De Anza Community College. They had issues, Berkeley, things like that. And think about it. If I'm a clever thief, I'm going to go for the big data, right? And I'm going to go and I'm going to hack into there, take the big data, and then boom, I'm going to hit everybody for like $1. If I get 1 million people, I hit you for $1. What if you called the police? They're going to be like, $1? Are you nuts? But that's a smart crook, right? Because then I'll wait 6 or 7 months. I'll hit everybody. I get 1 million people's names. I hit them all for $1. I got $1 million. I do that once every 6 or 7 months. What's interesting is if you've been a victim of identity theft, because you can't change your social, you are 21% times more likely to be a victim again because they can get that information from you. But some people say, I'm super careful. Well, here's the challenge, right? Military records, our socials, real estate deeds. In fact, this was crazy. Consumer Reports, I used to get their magazine, and they were talking about how two things. One was up in San Francisco, people were jumping in the dumpsters behind the Social Security Administration office and finding stuff they weren't shredding properly all the time. And they also were talking about how in like San Mateo County, you could go and look at their microfiche, and what was on there on divorce decrees, the information was the same, like bank accounts and not necessarily socials, but like, okay, we have to split, let's say I divorced Teresa, right? So all of my account information would be on there too. So, again, warning, trying not to scare everybody, but like the Vegas DMV has been broken into, I think it's 7 times because they want that information in there. But it's not just them. Think about some of the scariest data breaches. I've updated this just really recently. I went ahead and looked this up for you. These are the top scariest data breaches. So Yahoo, 1 billion lost, Facebook, 540, it goes on and on. But I looked up the partial list, and I thought these were some interesting things just in the first half of 2020. And Estee Lauder, ladies, they had a oops. Some of this wasn't your social, but it would be like your password if you were, purchasing things, your addresses. MGM had an issue. Walgreens had an issue. Carnival Cruises, score one another for Carnival Cruises. They're getting hit so hard with everything. Even San Francisco Airport had a breach. Zoom, as we all know, those bombers on Zoom, why do they even do that? What is the gain from that? I don't get it. But anyway, Zoom, of course, had a breach as well. So, like I said, the genie's out of the bottle here. So what's also interesting is I told you that, it's not only just the children, right? Because they don't use their credit up to the age of 18. So they have credit all the way up till the time they go probably to college and sign up for that credit card to get the free t-shirt, right? And then they find out, oh, you own a home and it's in default in Michigan. But it's also, we have it, let's face it, there's an increase right now of people who are deceased that are seniors that are now having their identity stolen, and it's leaving a lot of havoc for those people that are left behind due to COVID. So that's a serious note there. But this particular crime has really surpassed world drug trafficking. And let me tell you why that is. It's interesting because it's large gains and it's low risk, right? There's no victim contact. I'm not sticking somebody up at the ATM for crying out loud where there's cameras and, armed. So it's really light sentences. A lot of times it's considered a property crime. So it's not until the third time it's a real big issue. So, if you're a drug addict and you want to get a little side money going, there you go. If you're organized crime, they're behind a lot of this, especially the larger data breaches. It's big money for them. They also hire street gangs to go out, break into cars and whatnot, and then they don't, you keep whatever's in the car, we just want what's in the glove box kind of thing. And then career criminals. This is not a new crime. People say, wow, this just kind of popped up. No. Remember the movie Catch Me If You Can? Frank Abagnale was like the original identity thief, posing in there as airline pilots and washing checks and all that good stuff. So it's not a new thing. It's just now that we are moving so much online. Think about it. With our COVID, we're now working from home. Our kids are learning from home. We are, increasing our social media footprint to connect with folks. We're purchasing more food and groceries. So our digital exposure has gone sky high, and I'm going to show you some stats here in a minute about COVID. But terrorists also, are perpetrating this time. If you want some light bedtime reading, pick up the 9/11 Commission reports. I'm just kidding, it's like this big. But they dedicate a whole 100 pages to how terrorists during 9/11 were able to rent apartments using our names, flights, all kinds of things. So it's out there. But let's transition a little bit how they're getting your information. And within that, we're going to talk about some prevention tips. And again, you can't, prevent everything, but let's talk about how we can mitigate some of our risk out there. It was interesting. I had one of my clients that had their purse stolen, and the police department said, hey, we got your purse here. Get your purse back. So they got a purse, and everything was in there. It was very, oh, what a great citizen. All my money's in there. That's so awesome. Wow, yay, we people. Well, they didn't want the money. They just probably took pictures or wrote down her credit card information and then started racking up bills, right? So they don't, when they're going to steal your wallet or your purse sometimes, they're going to make it seem like they didn't do anything so you don't cancel anything. So here's a prevention tip. If your wallet or your purse has been out of your possession for any length of time, go ahead and just cancel them anyway. It wasn't a client, but I had a friend at the gym who came in and his locker at the gym had been shimmied open and his wallet was still there. And he's like, oh great, I must have just scared him out or something. But no, they probably just took pictures again of their information. You know, stealing mail is a challenge as well. So we're going to talk about having a locking mailbox and things like that. So just be really mindful of what bills you're putting out. Don't put the red flag out because it says, hey, thieves, I got some stuff over here. Come get it. Right, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. We talked about a little bit with the street gangs, with the auto burglaries. That can be an issue. So get a locking glove box if you've got it. Some of us have SUVs. We can't really do that, so put it in the trunk somewhere, or not the trunk, but the back. And then insiders. This is an interesting one. So one of the early issues was with what we saw there with the Yahoo. So there was an opportunistic help desk person that ended up, you know, being hired by organized crime to take that information because they're making minimum wage and then sell it to the organized crimes. And that's how they did it. So there's some, Oregon, I was doing this presentation in Oregon, and I did a lot with the police department as well. And I've trained the Santa Clara Civilian Police Academy. I used to run around with the Electronics Crime Division from Redwood City. And they were talking about how there's an issue, and they went to a manager's house and there was all this banking stuff, like print screens at his house. And they were actually getting him for something else. And they said, should your bank manager have all these print screens of people's accounts at his house? And they're like, no. So he'd been doing this for years, you know, print screens, sell a couple of them for $25, right, each, and making some extra side money. So insiders are a problem. I love like CSI and all those shows because I love this stuff. It's really interesting. And they did a show on a guy who had done just this. So if you're at an ATM machine and it seems hinky, like, you know, something's not quite right, just note that they'll put an extra card reader and then a camera on the side to get your ATM number. And we've seen this from time to time. There was a donut shop actually in Redwood City that had one jacked up on 2x4s. There was no money in it. So you'd, you know, do your PIN and then no money would come out and you'd be like, dang it, it must be out. No, there never was any money in it. They just wanted your info. So if something looks fishy or hinky, don't use it, move on. Here's a big litany, and I am going to do a couple things. So after this, I'm happy to send you my entire PowerPoint, no problem. So don't feel like you got a screenshot or anything else.
Thank you for sharing that, Kai. Just to quickly interrupt, I wanted to remind everyone that we are recording this session and it is filed on our YouTube channel, which we'll give more instructions about. But thank you for also offering this is very, very helpful. I'm sucked into all the stories too. You could probably write a book.
I know, I could be here forever. That's why I got to keep going because I got 13 minutes left.
Thank you, Kai.
You know, be careful about people working for you. So especially if you're, you know, I've got a housekeeper coming in. So my housekeeper is licensed, bonded, and insured, just to make sure that, you know, they're not in your home. So know who's in your home, right? That could be very opportunistic as well. So shoulder surfing, this is as old as the hills, but let's say you're at Costco and there's people behind you, you know, they have little phones that can take pictures. So they can take a picture of your, you know, checkbook. So just be mindful, don't be a nut job, but just be mindful of who's around you when you're writing checks, so nobody's taking pictures like that. We all know wireless communications, when you're, you know, outside of Starbucks or at a hotel, you're using their wireless, it's not secure. So be smart about that as well. A lot of telephone scams that we've seen as well. So they'll call you, and I got one of these. My bank said, hey, you know, was this you? You bought this, it was like a boat. You bought this boat in New York, da, 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 da. And I was like, no, it wasn't me. Well, give us the last 4 of your social. Let's make sure this is you. I go, wait. So if you have not initiated the telephone call, hang up and call them directly from the credit card numbers on your back. And one was legit. They called me once about something else and it was legit, but I said, this may or may not be legit, but I'm going to call direct. So hang up, call direct. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about, we know about credit card fraud, but mail fraud. So because the IRS doesn't email, we know that, right? But there'll be some mail fraud. So they'll send you mail that looks pretty official. So again, if you haven't, you know, if you get something in the mail, you're not sure if it's legit, and you don't have access to an attorney to review it, you know, call the company direct and ask about it. We talked about a lot of these already. So the dumpster diving, Phone and utility frauds. This was interesting. It's pretty easy to set up a utility account. And I had a guy that owned a bunch of rental properties out in Fresno area. And he finally audited his bill after a really long time. He's like, this isn't a house I own. He'd been paying for someone else's house for a really long time. They just kind of added it there. So be judicious with your utilities. Just review your financial statements and information. I told you about internet searches. I can get everything I need except for the last 4 often of your social. And Frank Abagnale did an amazing thing. He said, it was one of his, he's the guy that Catch Me If You Can. At the end of one of his seminars, he said, okay, just tell me your name. Don't tell me anything else. And he came back the next morning and he said, from the internet, I got your birthday, your mother's maiden, like everything. So it's interesting. Skimming. In fact, there was an article about Dave & Buster's a few years back where the wait staff was taking their credit cards, skimming them on a little skimmer, putting it back in their pocket, running your account, and then giving these skimmers to organized crime at the end of the day. That's a very prevalent one as well. So I like to pay cash whenever possible, and some people don't even understand what cash is. They're like, right? They're like, cash? I gotta get the manager over here, right? How do you take cash? I'm like, geez, Louise. So I like using cash a lot. I think it helps out with it. So get out your cash for the month and use it. When it's gone, you're done spending. Another good tip. Data, don't use, the hotel computer if you can help it. Your information, if you do, don't do banking at the hotel in a little business center. Talk about outsourcing. They said this is really come down in the last few years, which is great. But there was H&R Block had outsourced some of their processing for tax returns. And somebody in India said, hey, we're gonna just go ahead and hold on to all these and we'll hit all these people with identity theft if you don't pay us. So it was basically ransom. So there's data ransom as well. They said that's really on the low, so that's good. But that was a really big thing out there. So I asked people, hey, who processes this? Like your payroll company, where does this go? What does this do? Ask some questions. Corporate accidents. I pick on some of our financial institutions, but one of our financial institutions had the computer and the printer for the 1099s were off by 1, right? So it would be Teresa's 1099, but somebody else's address on the top of it. So there's accidents that happen sometimes too out there. We talked about the phone thing. So let's talk about this for a second. If you didn't initiate the call, don't, answer it or hang up or whatnot, because spoofing is really easy. What they do is they can order a number of minutes on these websites where when they call out, it changes the number that shows to say police department, or it'll say, I love this one, phonegangster.com. For $10, you can get 60 minutes and it'll say, Chase Visa when you call. So that's why I'm saying you need to be really careful when you didn't initiate it. I'm not a techie girl, so this is not that conversation. So don't ask me a lot of techie things in there because I can barely turn on my computer. I could hardly find the link to get on here today. But find a friend who's good at this and make sure that you've got your spyware, your firewalls, and all that stuff. Phishing has been around forever, and I'm going to talk about this now because this is a big one for COVID. So just be really alert. Like I've had so many of my clients say, oh snap, I might have just done an oops. I'm like, what happened? They said, well, I got a letter from the CDC. Now the CDC is .org, cdc.org. And it said cdc.gov. Whatever, you know what I mean? So it was total scam. So just be really careful. They're not going to email you, just like the IRS isn't going to email you. Just when in doubt, don't open them, don't click on them, don't whatever. And a lot of times, I'm going to ask you to do this to play team. Whenever I get one, I get a lot of them from Apple. Your Apple ID, blah, 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 blah. So I'll forward those to abuse@apple.com, abuse@paypal.com. I send them every time. And so that at least they can try to track down these IP addresses and try to help it. Here's what's interesting. So obviously they work because they play on people's fears. But this is just the most recent phishing attacks from Barracuda Network. So it's really at an all-time high. So just don't fall for it. And it's stuff like, especially when we were trying to get hand sanitizers and masks. I mean, that's kind of mellowed out a little bit. Toilet paper, click here, we'll give you some, we got it. So just, yeah. Oh, and then the COVID tests are a lot of those too. Hey, get here, we'll give you a home test. There's no home tests that are gonna work. So If you're in corporate right now, just make sure if you work for, your HR departments, you're temping in there. This is a big one where they want you to, like a fake insurance company will say, hey, send me your census. We've got an issue. And what's in the census for a company? Socials, addresses, kids. So don't fall for that, right? And then remember, just be stingy with your information. Check your records regularly. Ask for a copy of your credit report. When you, at the end, if you email me, I'm gonna put my email out here. I'll send you my favorite of the ones that are, because a lot of the free credit reports aren't free. So don't put your credit card in. They're trying to get you to buy something, but you get, all repositories should give it to you for free for, one time a year, so you can rotate them around if you don't want to pay for something. Maintain really careful on banking records, so you see what's on there. We've talked about a lot of these, so I'm going to go swiftly here, but just protect your social. If you are, I'll give you a really good example. I'm at the chiropractor and they said, hey, what's your social? I'm like, do you really need that? And they're like, yeah, no, not really. I'm like, okay, great. So I asked, do you really need this? Because sometimes it's just been on the form forever, right? Don't carry personal information out and about with you, your passport, social security. If you don't need it at that moment, like I wish I could see you guys. I'd be like this, okay, who has their social security card in their wallet right now? And I guarantee you like 10% will be like, me. Take it out, memorize it. You don't need it in your wallet, right? So keep as few cards with you. Great tip, photocopy both sides of your credit card. So if you do lose your wallet, your account numbers, you can call and cancel them, all that great stuff. Invest in a good shredder. That's always a good thing at your home, and just put that stuff in there. Use good password practices, right? They now tell you if one's good, not good, use this, use that, and change them often, right? Don't print sensitive information on your check. Like my mom, I was like, Mom, really? Before she passed away a couple years ago, I was at her house doing some stuff. She had her social security number printed on her check. What are you doing? Right? I think
back in the day that was okay, right? Along with your phone number and your address.
Driver's license number on there. I'm like, oh my word. Plus, who uses checks anyway? Stop using checks. I don't, too many people touch them, look at them. You don't need them. Eliminate credit card offers. Again, this will also be in that email. If you want me to email you the PowerPoint, I'll send you the opt-out and all the other stuff that you need for this. Just be smart on social media. Like I talked about, get a locking mailbox. And I would say best, don't mail your statements from home. Just go to the bank go to the mailbox and just drop them in. It takes you 2 seconds. Also, this is a big one. When you're paying, if you are paying by check, which I don't, don't put your full account number in the memo. Like when you get a receipt from a company and it has XXX and then the last 4 of your credit card, do the same thing on the memo, and it'll reduce any of those opportunistic insiders that are like, hey, they can put this right here too. They don't love this, but you can request an ATM card only. Remember these days, Teresa, before they had, a Visa logo on it, because Visa, it doesn't require you to have a PIN number. ATM is PIN only. The bank hates it when you ask for this, but technically they have to give you one if you want one. I've stopped fighting them because it just takes too much time and I just don't care anymore. I'm like, whatever. But I used to be real stickler on that. Sign the back of your cards with CID and sign it. And then when they ask for your ID, compliment them, right? Yay, thank you. We want to reward the behavior. We want to continue it. I'll also give you a number to remove your list name from marketing lists as well. Make sure you're shopping on secure sites. That makes sense. And if you do become a victim and you don't have any service, act quickly, right? Report it. Dispute all transactions in writing so you have a record of it. And keep a little log of what time and who did you talk to, because you're going to forget, right? Like, who did I talk to? What did they say? Where are we at in the process? And put an early warning system in place. So in the minutes I have remaining, which is about 3, I'm going to share with you just really quickly what has been an industry response. So now you're educated to what's out in the market. Because some people say, I have an identity theft program. And I'm like, some people just don't know what they have. So the first thing we saw was reimbursement policies. It's on your homeowners if you own a home, but if you rent, they don't really have these. So it's cheap. It's like, $150 for the year. And what it does is it reimburses you for like receipts. Like let's say you had to get your signature notarized. They would pay you back for that. So ask your insurance, if you own a home, ask your homeowner's insurance if they have it. They do. It's probably on there. You didn't even notice. But get that. That was the first thing that we saw. It doesn't do anything except for pay you back for some of those out-of-pocket expenses. And it's cheap. Second thing we saw, and I skipped ahead, was monitoring. And monitoring is a great first line defense, but it's not, I mean, it's only your credit, right? That's only 25% of it. The problem is if you have monitoring and you are a victim, like I was a victim, then you got to fix it yourself. But monitoring is decent, you know, a lot of times, but your credit card usually does that for free. You know, Teresa, you go to Vegas and they're like, hey, are you in Vegas, girl? And you're like, yeah, I'm in Vegas. Okay, good, we won't turn your card off. So they're already doing that anyway, a lot of times. So that's not the big problem. Third response we saw was resolution services. And how you know if you have restoration or resolution services is you call the company that you're purchasing this from and you say, hey, if I become a victim, do I sign a limited power of attorney? And if you don't have resolution, you only have resolution services, you don't have restoration. So what that means is you're gonna get a do-it-yourself kit. You know, you can call and ask their experts to do it, but you're gonna still do it on your own, but it's better than nothing. And then of course I have to talk a little bit about what I love because I work for this company is restoration. And I think we're the only one that's doing this. What it does is you sign a limited power of attorney, we do it for you. So when I became a victim of identity theft right before lockdown on my credit, I called and they said, hold on, please. And they put the fraud alerts on all my accounts. They did all that stuff for me. They talked to the creditors for me. Now that's true restoration. I'm not doing it, they're doing it. I did have to do a couple things like report it down to the police department, that kind of thing. But they're gonna do all that kind of stuff for you. And so just a quick little information, I will send you more information. This isn't that call, but just so you know, 70% of people also have a legal issue, which is why people go, why do you have legal and identity theft? And that's why. And because if you have monitoring, you want to be able to restore it. But in case the credit card companies, for instance, don't want to do the right thing and it shows up there years later, a letter from an attorney might help. So this is why we do both, all three of these. And this is the stuff that we do. You can take a picture of it. We'll also send this to you. But, you know, we're monitoring things that matter, including social media. We're doing reputation risks, as well as cyberbullying for minor children. And we're managing out what people can find out online. So we're managing YouTube and all these other things for you. And then again, if you become a victim, right, you get a licensed private investigator that fixes it for you. And we actually replace the fraudulent charges up to $1 million. So that being said, it's a great first line access to counsel, continuous monitoring, and restoration services. So if you want more information on any of this, here's a couple things you can do. Number one is there's my website. And if you go to legalshield.com or idshield.com, I don't get credit. So go to my website. Also, I have a COVID resource website. So if you don't want to contact me, write that down. It has the new frauds that are out, how to protect yourself legally with identity theft and whatnot for personal and business. Free resource. It's updated every day by our attorneys. Take a look at that. And if you want to call me for any reason, there's my phone number, or you can email me. And if you email me, I'll send you how to opt out of all those things if you missed it, this PowerPoint. I'll send you a quick little video on what our services do. So if you know anybody, that's great. But that's really what we're going to do. So I hope you had a lot of value here today. And bam, I finished, I think, 1 minute over my 30 minutes.
Thank you, Kai.
Yes,
We have some pings in the chat too and some questions. While I'm collecting those and kind of monitoring all of that and sharing that with you, if you guys want to use the chat, again, another reason why we do connected conversations and use this technology is, to Kai's point, we want to learn how to use it to our favor and protect it from the areas we need to protect from, right? So feel free to use the chat box and share an aha moment that you got through Kai's presentation, maybe something you're like, ooh, aha on that, or, oh, I didn't realize that, right? So feel free to ping that in, or any other questions that you might have. But some folks were saying, we've heard from Krista, love Kai's energy. She is passionate. We have another one from Tiff that says, thank you, Kai, the information you provided is invaluable. Also too, Kai, I did share your information in the chat box as well, but I'm glad that you have the slide up here too. So thank you. Okay, so here's a few questions that we have. What is the #1 product we must have?
Well, I'm biased because I think I have the best product because people just don't know what they have. And this is kind of a funny, but I've looked at people's policies before for identity theft, and I tease them. Like, this one gal thought she had more than she had, and it was just monitoring. And I said, it's a little bit like wearing the hospital gown and no one tells you you're open in the back. So I can help tell you that. I do have some comparison of different programs so you can kind of see what they offer. But you really need access to counsel, like I said, in that thing, plus monitoring things that matter, not just credit, because like I said, your credit card's going to call you anyway. But also, monitoring that social media. So for instance, sometimes it's you, like I had a friend who had their shirt off showing their workout during COVID, their ripped abs. And they said, oh, there might be some pornographic information on your, and he was like, no, that was me just showing off my washboard,
Over secure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then of course, having someone fix it for you, because if a professional gets it, you should have somebody professional, restoring it. So I am biased, but I think it's the best.
Thank you for sharing that. And also one of my aha moments, well, there were a few, and I found your presentation very, very helpful, Kai. Thank you. And also thank you for being so respectful of our audience and the time frame we have together today, because I know a lot of them have questions too, so that's perfect. But one of my aha moments was the being away from your wallet or purse for a period of time and not realizing it and thinking everything's still there, so it's okay. That was an aha for me. So a question, any tips on using coffee shop Wi-Fi, hotel Wi-Fi? How can we make sure our information is safe?
I don't use it. So I bought a little jetpack from Verizon that is my own dedicated line. You can also use your phone if you've got enough juice, because most of our phones are also, hotspots. But I'm too paranoid. In fact, in Mountain View near the Starbucks, they were really, like I could go on forever about this stuff, but the little gal inside noticed that every day this guy at peak time would never buy coffee, but he'd just sit outside on his computer, and she thought it was funny. And sure enough, one time a policeman came in to get some coffee, and she said, would you just check on that guy? Because he's out here all the time during our peak time, just sitting there on a computer. It's kind of creepy. Like she thought maybe he was, trying to find young women or do something creepy. No, he was jacking into their Wi-Fi and getting on people's computers. So I'm uber paranoid because I work around it so much. So I'm going to always tell you, like, the nth degree what to do to be safe.
But also thank you for being so positive about still using all the technology too. I mean, it's things we can't avoid, right? We're submitting our resumes online. We're having to order DoorDash. We have to live in the environment that we're around, but then what are ways we can be proactive about how to protect ourselves? So it's really, really a great balance. Yeah.
And that's why I said, there's no way to prevent it 100%. Like, I'm so judicious, and I've been a victim now twice, once with the Emirates Airlines thing and the other thing on my ATM. And then the second time was on my credit card, which wasn't nearly as devastating because they didn't take my money, my cash. But so use your Visa whenever possible. That truly is another great hack for you guys. Don't use your ATM if possible, because if they get a hold of that, you're going to get your money back, but it's such a pain not to have access to your cash, even your savings, if they go all the way through.
Right.
That's a big one. That hopefully that helps.
Good reminder. Kai, what jobs do you see coming out of the pandemic in the cybersecurity arena from your scope?
Area. I mean, you really think about it's such a growth industry right now for everybody, and we're in a brave new world where everybody's working from home. So I can just imagine that if you're anything with cybersecurity, data security, any of those arenas, you're going to have a lot of job security for a while, because everyone's working from home, and just our footprint is so big out there, so big. And everybody's trying to figure out the best ways to protect it, because as fast as you can figure out a company can figure out how to protect that information, a crook's now trying to figure out how to backdoor get in again. So, it's keeping up with them. And here's something interesting, Teresa, I just wish that those criminals would spend as much time trying to hack into a company and figure things out like that as they would trying to figure out how to solve the world's problems. You could do so much good with that force.
Right, with that expertise.
Yeah, it's so sad. They're using it for evil. They're using their superhero powers for evil.
There you go. Well, more talks from you, and then we'll get to all of them, right?
Yeah.
How about tips? Any tips when you are applying for a job and it asks for your work history, the places you've lived in the last 7 years? Should we do something special to protect our identity for things like that?
Just make sure the company is legit, right? So that's the best you can do. Like I said, your information, you have to put it, especially like in the job search type thing, you're going to have to put that information out there. But just make sure if you're applying online to something that it's a legit company, because that was something else that has always been one of those scams, is companies that are fake companies asking people to enter their information. So just make sure it's legit, you know, and that's why I say at the beginning of this, warning, warning, this information can be scary. And there's just sometimes just not a lot you can do. Like, we're all going to buy DoorDash.
Mhm.
We're all going to apply online. We're all going to bank online.
Or
And so
some of us were forced to shop online because we really couldn't do anything else to, if we
yeah.
needed to buy something, as you were saying, right? That's true. Yep.
Just be safe. Like, I try to buy, you know, I'll see stuff target marketing from small little retailers, like little t-shirt companies and things like that. And I want to buy from them, but sometimes I don't, because I don't know how secure that is. Like, I'd much rather buy from Amazon because I know that security is going to be higher there. So I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Like, you know, you get the Facebook, buy this cute, ooh, what a cute t-shirt. I'm like, oh, wait, I don't know about that. That could be dicey. So
Trusted sites, going to trusted sites, sure. So Kai, then now, a lot of the folks that we're working with and that are here, the audience today, are either some of our community partners, some of our clients, some of our soon-to-be clients, some job seekers and our associates. So I wanted to ask a few questions around jobs and interviewing and different things like that. So you just mentioned that you've been teleworking quite a bit, and for a lot of folks, it's an adjustment. It's not something they were doing before. Do you have some tips on how to be productive and how to manage yourself while you telework?
Yeah, you know, it was funny. It's been a long time since I've been working from home, and a lot of my friends now are just starting to, or have been for the last few months, and they all ask me that, like, oh, how did you transition? Because in the beginning, you know, there's a lot of distractions. Like, that laundry looks like it needs it right now. You know, like it's calling your name, and so, and the TV can be a big distraction. You know, so it's discipline like anything else. So when you're working, people think they can multitask. They can have the news on in the background and work. I don't know anybody that's nearly as effective. So what I like to do is just be like, when I'm working, I am working. Like, I set a little timer. If you have kids, I know that's a challenge right now with kids at home. But, you know, for my husband and I, because now he's working home too, when the door is shut, it means we're working. Like, do not disturb. We got to do what we got to do. And so I think using a door can be a big thing, but it's time blocking. So it's blocking 1 hour. I'm working, get up, stretch, walk around, watch 10 minutes of the news if that's your thing, play a video game if that's your thing, but then set a timer for it and come back and work again. And then unfortunately, you get so good at working from home, you almost need to walk away, because I could be here all day working. I love it. So be careful about how good you get at working from home, because now I work too much.
Yeah, but you're accessible at all times, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know that we're coming up on our time here, and I just really wanted to say again, genuine thanks to you, Kai. I've always had great one-on-one behind the scenes experiences with you. I've seen you in public, and from the responses on the chat, really great helpful tips, and people that love your energy, and the fact that you're helping and sharing such great information. Great to have a friend like you in our network and as one of our connections. It looks like there's also quite a few Legal Shield supporters as well that are vouching for Legal Shield. So I wanted to ask one last question. What, with regard to, you know, everyone that's applying for jobs and networking, and, you know, sometimes it can be really tough. It's a very competitive environment right now. What's maybe 2 or 3 things that you do to stay motivated during a stressful or, you know, high pressure time?
That's a really good question. There's 2 things that I have done since we've been on lockdown, and that started for me March 13th. I have never missed a day of walking. I have walked 3 to 5 miles every single day without fail. Rain, shine, doesn't matter. And that has been so good for my mental health, because we really are kind of going stir crazy. So I would recommend, you know, building something like that in there for your physical, because it's easy to not do that. That's number 1. And that has kept me sane. Number 2 is I'm a big proponent for personal and professional development. I should show you my library. I mean, I'm constantly listening to positive podcasts about how to be better in sales or business or public speaking. Because if there's something you're not great at on your job search, so maybe you're not the best at interviewing, you know, there's a podcast, there's a book, there's something that you can read. And just think about it. If you got 1% better at whatever it is that you wanted to do, you know, it's the compounding effect. You would be amazing at whatever it is that you're afraid of. And now more than ever, we have an opportunity to work on our fears, work on ourselves, in a way that we've never been able to do before. There's no sports. You can't, watch mindless sports. There's no new movies coming out. You can't go to the movies. So it's really a good opportunity to get some self-education. So if you're not good at social media, there's some books on that. So I'm really a big proponent for reading 10 pages of a good book every day, right? Listening to at least 15 minutes of a good audio every day, because you can get down if you let that CNN, right, constantly negative news into your life too much. So that's how you stay positive. Surround yourself with people that have your back, like people like these folks that are looking for solutions for you, that have your solution, not your problem. And keep positive in those ways. So find something you love to do, that exercise, even if you don't love it, do it anyway. And whatever you need help on, there's a book or a podcast. Start self-educating. And think about it, in this last 90 days, you could basically done one whole term at a college, right? And whatever it is that you need help in. So, learn and grow.
Well said. Thank you so much. And really, that's a perfect way to end our day today, because all of you that have joined us, either if it's the first time or you're returning, you are investing in being better, being around a community, sharing in resources, working together. So we thank you all for joining Connected Conversations, for paying attention and sharing resources. A lot of you have become community friends, people that we are leaning on to assist and help motivate others that need that. And we just want to thank everyone for your continued support for Connected Conversations. Thank you again, Kai. Very, very great session. We look forward to having the recording, and those that missed today, that will get to utilize more resources and review what you shared with us. So thank you, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye from Connected Conversations.
Thank you, Therese. Thank you, Tiffany. Great organization. Appreciate the opportunity. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.